For Durham's visitors, the cathedral is an unmissable sight. Over 1,000 years of history rising from the landscape. Inside these walls lie many secrets, spaces normally hidden from public view. That is, until now. PalTV's William Rome and Richard Griffiths take us inside to reveal the cathedral's hidden gems. Part 1. The Chapter House.
So this is the Chapter House. Now you may be familiar with this place because it was Professor McGonagall's classroom in the Harry Potter films. However, this is not a place just used for telling off Ron and Harry for being late to class. It's also a place that was used for telling a lot of monks off for being late to the various elements of their monastic lifestyle. So Richard, I guess the first place to start is, what is a chapter house?
So, a chapter house is essentially a meeting place. So, it takes its name from the fact that every day monks would gather here and read a chapter of the Bible. Hence, the Romans called the chapter house, and the sort of governing body that would meet here is called the chapter. But its responsibilities were much broader than that. So it was a meeting place for all sorts of administrative business. If the cathedral was considering buying a new farm or filling in an appointment within the community, they would gather here. The prior would sit, at the head of the meeting, he'd sit in this chair at the front here, and all the rest of the monks on the stone benches all around. And it's really the beating heart of the business of the cathedral.
And I guess it's important to mention a couple of things on this. Firstly, that Durham Cathedral owned a lot of the surrounding land because the Bishop of Durham was a figure who had a lot of secular power as well. And so it was very important to be able to make these decisions in an appropriate setting and with appropriate advice. The other thing to mention, of course, after the Reformation, so the prior no longer exists. It's now the Dean of the Cathedral is the equivalent, but this is not, unsurprisingly, not used by the Dean today to make decisions.
Yes, but of course that all of that makes it an incredibly important place, not just for the cathedral community, but for the whole county, the whole surrounding area.
Absolutely. So Richard, I guess the most important question to ask now is, how old is it?
Well, so what we're looking at right now is actually largely a reconstruction. So a chapter house was built like this one in the 12th century originally, and that's how it existed for many hundreds of years until the late 18th century, when a report was commissioned. It was decided it was too derelict and it wasn't fit for purpose. So they halved it in size, they removed the vaulted ceiling, and that was generally considered actually to be a terrible mistake and a terrible shame. And that lasted for another 100 years until the 19th century, at which point the chapter decided to reconstruct it to how it originally looked. So what we're looking at now is what a monk would have been looking at hundreds of years ago, but it is in itself a reconstruction. And it was done, that reconstruction was done in honour of Bishop Lightfoot, and that's hence you can see his shield is adorned all around the side.
How amazing. And so are there any original bits to this building?
So it's hard to say, essentially, but parts of the wall up here are probably original, and they preserved these figures there, which you can see correspond to the reconstructed versions supporting the ceiling up there. But if you look at them, they're quite interesting. It's not entirely clear what they are. They're clearly people. They're holding up the supports, but some of them are in ecclesiastical robes, and some of them are not, and it's still confusing as to what that might represent.
Okay, and then going to the more modern elements, so as part of the reconstruction, the letters on the walls, I'm assuming these are not original, and the stained glass as well. So
No,
what is the history of those?
These are the newest parts of the chapter house. The windows were installed between the walls by Hugh Easton, who was a famous stained glass window maker, and he's done some work in the main part of the cathedral as well. But the central one was the first to be installed in 1935. It depicts St. Benedict in black and the crucifixion above him, and it was installed in memory of choristers who fell during the First World War. So the names on the wall beneath that central window are those of the choristers who fell.
Okay.
Part 2. The Monk's Prison.
So Richard, we seem to be in a prison. Can you
Yes.
explain where we might be and why we're here?
Well, that was always going to happen. It's an odd concept, right, having a prison in a cathedral. This prison We don't exactly know when it was built. It was uncovered as they were excavating. It's a particularly intriguing part of the cathedral in that way, because it's a bit more mysterious than the rest of it. What you've got to remember is that a monastic community is a community, and it requires discipline. And if you require discipline, you need a deterrent. So actually this one's not too bad. There's a more serious prison. If you'd committed a crime and you're a monk, you probably wouldn't be put in here. This is for more minor misdemeanors. So say you'd gotten up late, or you were missing prayers or something like that, you just weren't fitting into the very highly disciplined monastic lifestyle, they'd probably pop you here for a couple of days.
It's interesting because it's actually a place that is quite advanced for its age, and although obviously it seems very small and it's a pretty claustrophobic environment for us here, but you know, that it was something. There was regular provision of food. There was a running latrine, which actually it went straight into the weir.
There's an air hole, so you can breathe. It's not too bad.
Which is a luxury for prisons.
Just around the place, there are little sort of indications of how it works. So by the door, there's still a hole in the wall where the huge wooden stake would be put over the door, so you couldn't leave. Obviously, that's the air holes we mentioned, and the ensuite facilities you mentioned. It's also very much a behind-the-scenes look. It's not the public face of the cathedral, obviously. This is
for the best, but it's a fascinating environment. Yeah.